Yeah, I was just saying that, you know, I appreciate that with discrimination, racism, as a minoritized employee yourself, it can have a big emotional impact. So I just wanted to check in how you're feeling kind of working in the school as these difficulties are emerging, big kind of systemic challenges you're unpicking.
I kind of feel a bit just deflated, a bit rubbish. I just feel that, I don't know, like, I do feel like there's a bit of undertones of racism there, maybe microaggression, but I don't know. There's just so much that has gone on. It just struck me back a bit, and it just made me feel a bit rubbish as well. One of the senior leadership as well just said, like, when I did mention about the black boys as well, it's like, she's just like, well, I would know much more. She's a black woman as well, and it was nice to see that in senior leadership. But she was like, well, I don't know much about our black male students, and yeah, it is their behaviour. And I will know more than you about, you know, our students and how to support them, especially coming from the same background. And I understood, obviously, she's there to support the students, but like, it kind of made me feel like, because I come from a different background, a different ethnic background, that maybe I'm not a great person to help. Just felt like me bringing up, you know, areas of like supporting mental health of race, like put them on the defense, and it feels like it's kind of ruined the relationship a bit, because when I have gone in the other times now, like, I'll try and ask about like cases or any workshops, and it's a bit like, we'll get back to you, or can you just do a workshop on exam stress at the moment? We want it for these students, but then those students are always like students from like not so much ethnic backgrounds, but just whether they're Caucasian or like from a working background. But it's also like there are some ethnic students, but it seems like they don't want to engage. So yeah, it's just
So there's clearly a lot going on with the school. You've done so many of these kind of systemic issues from the get-go, really. And I'm sorry you're having such a challenging time in there. What would be helpful for you now in this time that we have?
Just thinking of solutions of how to get around this school, because I feel like if this continues, it would affect like my mental health, and I wouldn't want to feel uncomfortable. Also, I want to try and make a change for these students from the global majority, whether they're, you know, South Asian, East Asian, Black, Caribbean, Black African, and so on. It's just, I feel like I've got a duty there, but boundaries for myself. Like, if I'm also, I feel kind of being disregarded or undermined, then.
So it sounds like you're feeling a bit sense of responsibility to make a change and support these students, but you're also very mindful of protecting your own mental health and well-being, which is obviously really important for you to be able to work effectively. Okay, well, we can certainly have a think about that. If I may, I wanted to share with you, you know, we mentioned in a previous supervision this framework I'm trying to use in supervision, racism prejudice spectrum. If it's okay with you, I wanted to share that on my screen now, and it's quite a helpful tool for us to.
Who's that by again, Dr.
Shungu H, who's an educational psychologist. If I can just get it up for you now, I just think it might help our reflecting on some of the things you've identified. Or I've pulled up the wrong thing there. Let me try again. Here we go. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to put it as a whole slide, but that's not seeming to work. Okay, is that coming up big enough for you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, So just a little recap. So what this is, it's thinking about discrimination and particularly racism in this example along a spectrum. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so we've got a baseline here,
Yeah.
and this is basically a visual way of thinking about some of the experiences and patterns you've identified in this school in a kind of visual way along a spectrum that can be moving in a positive direction up, or these plus numbers towards +6, or in a negative direction down towards extreme discrimination and racism. So I thought it'd be helpful just to pick out a few of those kind of practices and behaviours you've identified, and we could think about where that might fall on here. I thought it might be kind of quite helpful for you to conceptualize it in this way, so we can identify where the challenges lie, and it might help us think about how we can address those. So if we take kind of, there's a lot in what you said, but you were kind of saying you're not feeling valued as a professional, is that right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly it.
So looking, if we take that issue initially, where would you kind of map that onto here in terms of some of these descriptors we've got of behaviours that you might see?
I think for the score, there's like undermining me on the -2
Right, yeah.
and kind of ignoring like what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then but also +1 with the microaggressions.
Mm,
Feel like there's that as well. They're not just,
okay.
they're not really recognizing their behaviors.
Mm,
Oh, there is microaggression on -4 as well. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that's sometimes a little confusing. I think
Yeah.
where it is slightly higher up, it shows slightly more kind of awareness of those behaviours and a potential intention to do better, whereas this is much more in the more severe end.
There is biases as well. I guess I've got biases of +2.
Mm,
Um,
yeah. What would you say those biases look like?
just that they think black male students are a problem. They haven't got any like mental
Mm,
health issues or needs. It's just their behavior. And that was the
yeah.
exact words. It's actually their behavior.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose we could almost think of that as a bit of an adultification bias, where they're not seeing those young male students as still children and young people who need that support, but they're seeing them as, challenging and threatening and behaviourally difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're seeing quite a few things here, you quite personally, and some it sounds like are kind of operating at a more systemic or structural level in how they're profiling students. Okay, what other things can we try and map on from what you said?
I guess with how I'm feeling, I feel helpless.
Yeah.
So it's a +3. But I guess but then I guess racial intolerance, -4.
Mm.
There's
Have you
just
observed some kind of gaslighting and racial slurs?
I don't know if, well, actually that's a lie. That would, well, I don't know if it was a racial slur, but it was more like, the teachers who are leaving, they're not
Yeah.
the best fit for the
Right, yeah.
school. So I don't know if that's kind of like a
Mm.
I don't know if it's racial slur, but it's like an undertone of like
Yeah.
racism.
Yeah. I wonder if that's kind of a microaggression maybe around this stage,
Yeah,
actually. It
yeah,
sounds like as a school, they're kind of operating in this negative side of the spectrum. And I think you're
yeah,
also starting to identify some positives that sound more like your skills as a practitioner in a kind of identifying where these problems are. You've obviously got that awareness to kind of take a step back and reflect on what's happening here.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so we've got lots of microaggressions that you're observing, and the profiling and biases around how they think about and talk about certain groups of students. Where would you say their kind of awareness falls of this type of issue? Do you have a sense of that yet?
The students or the
No, the staff you've spoken to, I was thinking.
um I think they're just like on a -2.
Mm,
Um I don't think they're recognizing the behaviors, like the stereotypes. They're not trying to
Okay.
understand.
Yeah.
Although the DMHO, I feel at some parts was trying to understand some of my points, but it just felt like the head teacher was just like, nope,
Right.
we celebrate this, we celebrate that.
Okay. So there's a kind of issue of the kind of hierarchical system and management really needing to update their understanding as well. And I wonder actually, maybe that's the kind of first place to start in terms of intervening in this tricky system, because just recognizing that it's very complex what you're identifying, and there's no quick fix to change a whole school system. But what we can do maybe is focus in on supporting the school with their understanding of where some of their biases are and how they're showing up in the day-to-day running of the school around the kind of microaggressions and things.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of ideas you have of how you could support in your role of helping the school to become more aware of bias?
I think it would be helpful to, I don't know, maybe give them like a training or something after on like one of the inset days of just like not talking about them, but how schools overall, research shows like schools have these racial biases, or whether maybe you could support me with this, like coming in and
Certainly
show.
something we could think about. Co-delivering something.
Yeah.
I was also wondering what you would think about maybe having an initial smaller input with just the senior management team.
Okay, yeah, that would be good.
Because as we know, we need them to really be on board for it to trickle down to the rest of the staff body. So we could think about a bit of a staged plan with that.
Yeah, that would be a much better idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe talking to the team, maybe if you would be willing to come and support me that, as I feel just a bit like they're not going to listen to me, especially from the meeting we had. But
yeah,
maybe this model can be used, the prejudice racism spectrum can be used to explain certain things to them, so they have a bit of an awareness.
I think that's a good idea. Certainly we can think about that in our next supervision in a bit more detail. I'm just mindful of, whilst I want to support you and ensure you feel comfortable, I don't want to reinforce you feeling undermined if they then perceive you have to have your supervisor coming for you to be able to deliver something. So we'll have to kind of think about how we navigate that, but I'll certainly be happy to support you. Does that feel kind of a manageable first step in tackling some of these big systemic issues at the school?
Yeah, definitely does. Definitely does. And
Okay.
I'll take some time, like after supervision, just to think of any other ideas I have to, and then bring it back to you.
That will be helpful. And I'd encourage you, any things that come up that you observe along these kind of discriminatory lines, just make a note of them. If you can, map them onto here and bring it to supervision next time, and it will help us kind of collect that data of what we're actually seeing on the ground.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ameen. Take care.
Thank you so much, Emma. I'll see you soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.